Now, in the topic that isn't going away, nor should it necessarily, though I do believe that it should be conducted in a serious, adult manner. We have a paper, well, we have a blogger and then now also a paper that is publishing the addresses and locations of either people who have a gun permit but no proof is presented that they have a gun, or are gun owners. Now, before I get into this, I do want to say, though, that for the pro-gunners, making the argument of, oh, you want to know what my stance is on gun control? Break into my house and find out. Yeah, because that makes you so much bigger. You had one job. Not unlike the NRA, you had one job. You could have come out of this looking like the better people. Instead, you're practically threatening people's lives, or at least threatening to put a gun in somebody's face by egging them on to break the law, to give you a reason to pull your weapon because, I'm sorry, how does that make you so much better in this conversation? Willing to say, oh, I'm not normally a violent person. I'm a responsible gun owner, but come into my house uninvited and I'm going to pull a gun on you. I'm sorry. That's not an argument. If anything, that's responding angrily to the anger of the antis, who were already angry long before this shooting happened and only got angrier the moment that it happened. Because you antis, you came out in force. You came out in force to even go after the NRA when the NRA did the honorable thing, unlike you guys, and kept their dumb, big mouths shut. Now, sadly, they opened their mouth just to insert their foot, but at least they didn't decide to turn this into a political platform on the day it happened, practically the second that the shots had finished, that the bullets had cooled off, the bodies were still warm. At least they waited long after all of that to open up their mouths. You turning this into your own political platform was not respectful. It does not give you points towards your opinion, your idea of what could be and what can be. Now, I'm not going to get back into Denmark and Sweden, which are both living examples of two extremes that we could have, either a country with all guns or a country with only criminals having guns, and it not be the nightmare that some of the pro-gunners create. See, because I have this little problem, you see. I have this big problem. I like to deal in being intellectually honest. And some of the most extreme elements out of both camps are not being intellectually honest, or they're making non-arguments and pretending as if they've won. And pretending that they're somehow so much better, either morally or intellectually, and so on and so forth. But if you're so quick to pull a gun on somebody and then say that you're a responsible gun owner, I'm sorry, you lose the argument. But if you're this one who thinks a life without guns is Shangri-La, Shangri-La, you are also an idiot. And you are not making a valid concern. And to push that even further, and start to invade people's privacy, and start to make it like, oh yeah, Frank down the street who's never hurt anybody? I now know he's got a firearm permit. Maybe he doesn't have a gun, but I know he does, so now I've got to be paranoid about him. I've got to keep my eye on him, because suddenly I've decided he's a threat to me, because guns are bad. Or, like we're suddenly supposed to change our ideals. We're suddenly supposed to have a new reason to be paranoid because, oh no, any one of these people who likely have been responsible gun owners, and most of you probably didn't even know they had a gun. if they have a gun at all. And now, oh, now you know. That should change very little. Oh, suddenly I know he has a gun permit. Suddenly, in my mind, this person's turned into a monster because guns are bad. This is childish. I would expect this from high schoolers. I would expect this from people whose mental age and mental maturity would match up with this kind of smear campaign or tactic. These blips should mean nothing to the people who know these people. These blips should not change the dynamic of the relationships of people between each other. But in a way, this is almost to make it like, oh, here's this blanket society of gun owners that you didn't know were there. They're like communists, only worse because they've got guns, and guns are bad. What is wrong with you people? Why is it for the last few years, whether it's politics or now gun politics, you both sides, pro and anti, have not the slightest idea of how to sit down at the adult table and have a calm adult conversation about this? Pros, stop acting as if you have a right to start just threatening everybody while claiming that you're a responsible gun owner and pulling out your gun every last chance you get to prove that you've got a gun and somehow that makes you right. But antis, stop acting like the only function that guns have ever had in this world is killing people. Because yeah, hunting has never happened. Hunting never still happens. The only reason why hunting to some degree is a bit superfluous is the fact that we live in a rich industrialized country where we have the money and the resources and the industrial farms with which to get food upon your table if that's what you're looking at. Because you don't have to farm. You don't have to go out in the field every day and feed the cows or feed the chickens or rake up their leavings, if you will. You've got privilege, so much privilege, that you can't see past your own moralistic choices, whether they be veganism, vegetarianism, anti-gunism, anti-war, fracking, anti-this, anti-that. Some of those are real concerns, by the way. I'm not trying to lump them all in one ball and overgeneralize or oversimplify them, because that's what both of you are doing. You're not willing to look at this topic for what it is. You want to take a complex topic, dumb it down, and again, I'm talking to both sides here, and turn it into black and white, winner takes all kind of battle of words and concepts, and neither of you are saying anything. The moment that an anti even starts to have a point, you pro-guns are right there to shove your gun down their throat and say, no, you're wrong. I'm peaceful, and to prove it, I'll shoot your ass. How does that work? How do you logically rectify this kind of opinion, both pro and anti, where you can overgeneralize this, water this topic down to, oh, everything would change if guns were just magically whisked away tomorrow. If all of the world's guns just magically disappeared, the world would be a utopia unto itself. Do you realize why Denmark works without guns? Do you realize why Sweden works with guns? Do you realize how far removed from those two cultures we are and how embarrassing that is? You, especially you gun owners who are all USA, USA, and make this into a patriotic idealism. Do you realize how far down the ladder we have fallen as a country? And you want to sit here and try to talk about that regulation is just code word for ban and for coming into people's homes and forcing them to give up their guns against their will, and going so far as to quote the whole thing with Waco, Texas as being Exhibit A for the removal of guns. You're right, but not for the reasons that you think you are. But antis, you're right as well, but again, not for the reasons that you think you are. Both sides are not right for the reasons that they want to be right for. And until we realize this, and until we realize this isn't simply a matter of guns or the lack thereof, then nothing, literally nothing is going to change in this country, and anything that happens from this point on is on both your heads. So until you can be adults and talk about every topic that has to do with this topic, then you're being children. You're not being the adults that you grew up to be, that you have gained the title of, and you're being obstructionist. Both of you. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. We have newspapers willing to print the locations of gun owners or permit owners as if that's supposed to mean something. It means something. It means you're a mean-spirited child, and it being a newspaper that some of these are, they should know better. But oh no, 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 no. We want to wage war. We want to wage war without guns against people with guns. Can you understand how that is a losing proposition, and in many ways for both parties?